Okay, so lots of fun under the back of the car here. It's pretty hard to see with everything that's going on, but up through there in the center of the screen is two holes through that used to be the rivets for the bracket for this guy. That bracket there was riveted, and that's the T-block to split the rear lines that was on that stud there. Couldn't get anything on this head to undo it. No sockets or wrenches fit, of course. Tried one of the socket extractors, couldn't get it to bite. So I ended up ripping the bracket off the floor, break the rivets. And then as soon as I could get vice grips on the head and pliers on the bracket, I was able to crack it loose and the threads are fine. So that's the kind of frustrating stuff you get on this stuff. Both of the inner flex lines, I don't know if you can see up through there in the center of the screen, there's a kind of a egg-shaped oval hole in the floor as well. That's where that was, the other end of the inner flex line. I don't know how you're supposed to ever access that. It's right above this cross support tube. You cannot get anything to it. I don't know how you ever assemble or disassemble brake lines up there, but both sides were the same. That one's there. That was spot welded to the floor, the little bracket. So I think I'm going to relocate those because that's nuts. You can't get to it at all. So then the other end of the inner flex line is where I've got the vice grips here now, and I've got the torch set up here because I need to get those undone so the brackets can stay intact on the lower A-arm. And then we can get the rest of the hard line off out to the outer flex line, which then goes to the caliper. And same thing on this side, we're gonna get that one undone. That one, the inner ones of the inner lines, I might still try and get undone, or I might just decide to make a new bracket and mount it somewhere else because, yeah, that's craziness. So that's what we're up to now, and I was able to get the parking brake cables out. It's hanging out there. It came out of its tube up there pretty easily. That tube is still attached, I think. This tube up there, I think is ripped out of the floor as well. All those spot weld locations seem to be really crusty for some reason. All of the flex line mounts, all of the parking brake tube bracket mounts, that kind of stuff. But doesn't really matter. This car is not going to get driven in the winter at all, and it's not going to get driven likely in much of the way of rain, so I'm not too concerned. But yeah, that's where we're at. We can also now get that line up there going that way is the one that comes from the front of the car, so we can get into getting the rest of the old lines off, and then look at starting to make some new hard lines for it. So I got both inner flex lines out. A little bit of heat from the torch is all it took, and the flare nut undid no problem, and I was able to wiggle the line out of the bracket on the car so it's still intact and ready to put where is it? Up there. Ready to put another flex line in and another chunk of hard line. And we're all set to move on from there then. Alright, so we're just going to kind of go through and do a bit of a quick vacuum up here and possibly spray some de-germ on the carpet and whatnot to try and start to get rid of some of the stink of mice. And like I mentioned before, I kind of want to look into the center console there, the radio and whatnot, and make sure there's no nest behind there at least, because there's definitely some weird crystallized stuff coming out of the radio. So I want to try and get on that. If it's not already destroyed, try and catch it before it's damaged any further. And I think this is part of the security system that was on it. I'm probably just going to get rid of that. I can't see it working, one, anymore with all the wires chewed up, and two, I can't see myself needing it, to be honest. So get rid of any extra junk. I also realized when I was taking the center console out that I'm missing the lower kick panel for the driver's side of the dash, so I might have to do some hunting to try and find one of those. I don't think it's in the car, so Yeah, just go through and start to clean up some of this, and then we'll look at how to get the radio and the climate control at least popped out to be able to look behind them. Okay, so for the radio here, supposedly it's not too difficult to remove. There's just two little tiny doors on each end. You take a little screwdriver and very carefully and gently pop them open. Maybe that. And then there is a screw in there. It was advertised to me as a hex, but that is not a hex for anybody that knows geometry. That is a pentagon. So you're supposed to have a proper tool to do it, but I have a 2mm Allen key here that seems to somehow fit, so I'm just gonna turn them clockwise here, or counterclockwise rather. That one came to a stop. And once those are loosened off a bit, you're supposed to be able to grab a hold of these little tabs and pull the radio out. Now those tabs are not going to take much to break them off, so I'm going to put the camera down and try this here and see what happens. Okay, so it was pretty much exactly as described. It helps a lot if you have the proper pentagon shaped bit. It's somewhere around 2mm. I don't even know if you can measure that way because it's not a hex, but anyways, you undo those two screws as far as you can, and then very gently pull on the tabs and wiggle, and it does come out. And exactly like I was concerned about, the whole top of the radio is covered with mouse poop and pee, so that's why I wanted to take this apart. Hopefully the radio's not internally damaged, but it's not looking great on the top there, so we might be able to take the casing off the top and the back and the front panel off and give it a clean up, and hopefully it'll work for us after that. But yeah, not too bad on the radio. I'm not going to pull it any further right now because there's mouse poop there, but once you get it out in your hand, then there's just a couple of plugs, the antenna cable and the main power and speaker wire feed, so it's not too bad to get out on these actually. So that's the radio out here now. There are a lot more individual connections than I thought there would be, so I'm probably not going to touch those if I don't have to. The main thing I was looking to see is if this hole was entirely full of like mouse nest, which it does not appear to be, which is awesome, and I don't even see any chewed wires, which is also great. So I'll just clean up the radio and the climate control console here, and I think we should be good to go on that front. The other thing that I haven't mentioned, I don't think, that I found out a little while ago is the heater fan probably has a mouse nest packed in it, and it shakes like a bugger when you turn it on, so that's got to come apart and get all cleaned. And then of course all the vents and stuff have to be cleaned out. You can see right there, there's insulation right out to the defrost grate there, so all that's got to be cleaned out. Not that I need defrost per se, but the car does have air conditioning, and if it works it'd be nice to be able to use it, so all the vents have to be cleaned out, and the blower fan has to work obviously on all speeds without shaking the dash all to you know what. It is fairly cracked in a few places, but I mean, you bake in the sun for 30 years, I guess that's what you get. Anyway, radio kind of semi-restoration coming up, just to do a quick cleanup on it and clean up the dash where all the mouse pee has come through the seams, and put it back together, and that'll be pretty good for that, I think. Alright, so got Mitchell here to help me now with filming and whatnot. We just got the rest of the center section of the brake line and the fuel lines out. Most of the clips are broken, but that's just what happens. But this will be the pattern to make the new brake line. It's supposed to be like that.
Sorry if it doesn't show up very well on camera. It's pretty much the same color as the gravel. So yeah, that should be a little better.
Yeah, fuel lines will probably be a bit of a template as well, because probably just make some out of like copper. And then the brake line, of course, one brake line to do front to back, which is nice. And then the individual back hard lines, which we'll look at another time. Going to kind of hold off on making new lines until we have all the brake parts, so that it can get all made and put together and sealed up, so there's not dirt in it. But we've got the frame rail repair to look into next, so we'll start cleaning that up, and then we can start hunting for some pieces to cut to size. So looking at that, the frame rails and the floor is way more crusty than we originally thought it was, which is the way it always goes when you dig into something. So to do this properly and safely, we're probably going to have to yank the carpet out to be able to get to the top side and the bottom side of it and do a proper repair and get the frame rail reinforced, and then we can seal it all up and should be good for lifetime of the car, because it's not going to see the winter anymore. So we're going to look at how much of a job it's going to be to try and get the carpet up out of the way. It'd be really nice to not have to rip the entire interior out. I got enough cars with the entire interior in storage. I don't have space for any more. But we got to get to the floor. I think it's just the driver's side front that needs any attention at all for now. So if we can do just that section, we'll do that and keep plugging forward. So we now have front carpet out. It was fun, not. So that lets us get to the floor pan and see how bad it really is. Instead of taking the whole heater core out, we just cut around the parts that need to stay, and should all be fine when it goes back together. The center console will hide the seam, so also gives us an opportunity to thoroughly clean the carpet. Might even pressure wash it, we'll see, before it goes back in. So anyways, back to the floor now. Okay, so now we can finally get a look at how bad this is here. That's supposed to be just a plug hole normally. That one's still got a plug in it, plug hole there, but there's not much left of that. I have no idea what those are. They look like little tiny eggs, but they're like yellow. They look almost like yellow peas, but the hole through there. And I don't know how much is actually left under this insulation material. So take this piece of ducting out of here, a couple of plastic nuts, and then we can probably gonna have to chisel this stuff off to be able to see what we've actually got. But good news, I guess, if any, is that the sides of the pan and like the front are all perfect. So even if we just put some metal over top of the floor here to reinforce that, and then we can put the brace on from the bottom, we'll probably be in pretty good shape. The rest of the floor looks incredible. A little bit of a spot there by the
this side. Some problems.
A little bit, yeah. Well, it is full of water in the plastic there, so, but I mean, compared to this side, it's tons better. And that part there underneath the edge of the plastic, if we just clean it up a bit and coat it with resin, it can't go any further. Or with, I guess that's right, fiberglass resin. And that spot there is going to be through eventually too, if it isn't already. So a little bit to do with that under the clip there too as well. But I mean, could be a heck of a lot worse for what it is. The backs are like, other than a little bit on Mitchell's side there, the backs are like brand new, which shows on the bottom side too. There's no orange showing at all. So do some cleanup on the driver's side here and get this ducting out of the way, and then start chiseling away at the sound deadening material. So, this is every car person's worst nightmare. It could actually be a lot worse, but this is our frame support underneath that we're looking at. Definitely needed help. And then, of course, holes on either side of it and over here. So, a couple of options. One would be to try and get an actual floor pan for it, and then we've got some good metal to weld to do the frame rail support on the bottom, or we just patch it with some pieces of sheet steel. Either way, we just need something solid down here, the angle pieces to weld to make the frame rail repair. So I'm cleaning this up a little more, try and get all the loose stuff off, and then we'll probably go at it with like wire wheel, see what else comes off. Need to get it all cleaned down either way, whether we're gonna try and patch it or put a new pan in. Have to see what's available too. But yeah, it's definitely crunchy, but I've also seen way worse. This is typical, and this is the driver's side, of course, so I wouldn't be at all surprised if most of this is from salt and moisture from the driver's feet, since the passenger side isn't nearly as bad and the rears have like nothing. I'm pretty sure, if I had to guess, that nobody ever rode in the back of this car from brand new. Like the seats are like brand new still. So that's probably why we ended up with such good floor in the back. So yeah, we'll clean this up some more and figure out what the next steps are.